I have my mobile.
Welcome to episode 17 of ECTEL Bytes. The show is a production of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority, and I'm your host, Coretta Crooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. By now, you should have an idea of who we are and what we do, but just in case it's your first time watching the show, ECTEL is the regional regulatory body advising the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commissions, or the NTRCs, on electronic communications or telecommunication matters in our 5 member states, namely the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The goal of ECTEL Bytes is to provide you, our viewers, with bite-sized information about development in electronic communications taking place at the Directorate or at like-minded organizations. Today, we continue our conversation on the quality of service, and our special guest is Mr. Lawrence Nervy, the Director of Technical Services at ECTEL. Welcome to ECTEL Bytes, Lawrence.
Thank you. Thank you,
Coretta. And it's okay to call you Lawrence?
Yes, of course.
Excellent. So since this is your first time on the show, tell us about your role and your department's functions.
Okay. Well, I'm the Director of Technical Services, as you said. So I head the Technical Service Department, which is responsible for engineering and information systems. We also provide guidance to the member states and recommendations on matters to do with regulatory issues, also matters of spectrum associated with spectrum numbering, licensing, and issues of that nature. We would also recommend and projects which of a technical nature, which would improve the technical standards in the region.
Okay. Yeah. So when I had Alvin the last time, we went into quite a bit of details about the quality of service regulations, public consultation taking place. So that's where we're going to be heading, more details. Okay. So the initial phase of that QoS public consultation wrapped up on April 3rd. What was the feedback like from the public? Well,
the feedback was much of what we expected, considering the regulations are very complex. There was quite a bit of, I would say, a voluminous amount of data to be processed. And so we did not expect that there would be a lot of public feedback, at least not from the general public. But we did get substantial feedback from the licensees, the operators, the NTRCs, and just a few members of the public. So we think that the feedback that we received was quite substantive and something that we can build upon. Yes.
Okay, and the feedback, would you say it was from across our member states? Or?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, across the member states.
Okay,
yes,
excellent.
Indeed.
So right now we're in the reply comments phase, which runs from Monday, 17th April to Friday, the 28th. Explain what that means, replies on comments, or reply comments.
So what it simply means is that the initial comments that we received in the initial phase, we would then collate these comments, and then we will make them available to all stakeholders, publish them on our website. The NTRCs will do the same on their website, so that the public can now view the comments that were made in the initial phase by the initial commenters. And so they can then comment on these comments. So we sometimes refer to a comment on comments. So really it is I think it's a very exciting phase of the public consultation, because what has happened is that the initial commenters have sort of distilled, juiced out, so to speak, ferreted out the salient issues, and it allows the public now to recognize these issues without having to go through all the voluminous data and to be able to comment on these issues.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm wondering, if somebody did not comment initially, will they be able to share their comments on something, other than what is being commented on now?
Well, not typically, because it has to be a comment on what has been commented on, because new issues that are raised now would not normally be accepted within that phase of the process.
Okay. All right, so the public consultation examines in detail the approaches followed in 10 jurisdictions, including other Caribbean jurisdictions and countries and regions with a more advanced electronic communications or telecommunications sector. Why was it important for ECTEL to carry out a benchmark study of other jurisdictions on QoS practices and standards?
Okay, that's a very good question. Benchmarking is really a comparative tool that is used by regulators to basically determine what exists out there and to understand what are the best practices, what are the international standards that is being implemented. In more advanced jurisdictions, they may have taken on board certain recommendations, certain clauses in the regulations which deal with their particular situation, but they may have also dealt with more prescient issues, emerging issues, and so that may become something that we have to deal with as we move on in the future. So now we can look at these, analyze them, and decide whether they are relevant to our particular region, our particular sphere.
Okay. What were some of the key topics covered under the international benchmark study? Okay,
so there were quite a few topics covered under the benchmark study, but I think we could distill them maybe into 7 main areas. It would have to do namely with the enactment, the power to enact and monitor. So that really deals with whether it's who has the authority, who has the responsibility, whether it's the minister, whether it's the NTRC, that sort of thing. Then we would look at aspects of the reporting. So who reports? Is it the submission of reports? What's the content of these reports? How frequently are they to be reported? The timeliness of these reports, and of course the publication of the reports. Who is responsible for publishing these reports? Because these reports need to be published to be made available to the general public so that they can understand what is happening. Then we also looked at the key performance indicators. What are the parameters that we want to measure, that we need to measure to be able to correctly monitor and administer this scheme? Then we also, of course, looked at the services and any of the constituent elements. You know, what parameters in there that we need to look at and what have you. And I think finally we looked at the enforcement and compliance, which I think is one of the very important areas that, you know, it really has to do with the sanctions that are available and how do we ensure that quality of service is kept under a good stead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are quite exhaustive, so that's quite a bit that the study looked at.
Indeed.
Yes. So under the current telecommunications quality of service regulations recommended in 2008 and the draft electronic communications quality of service regulations recommended in 2016, how would you say our member state fared? How did they perform in terms of the QoS being provided to consumers when compared to the other jurisdictions?
That's an interesting question. I think there are 2 ways of looking at it. First, if we look at it from the standpoint of the regulations itself, I think we fared very favorably with some jurisdictions. Our regulations did provide coverage for parameters that even some jurisdictions, more advanced jurisdictions, did not have. But mind you, there were others that we likewise did not have and we felt needed to be included. But looking at it from a secondary point of view, I think in terms of the implementation, the enforcement, the reporting, and the sanctions, that's where we probably were weak. And I think that is one of the aspects of this public consultation. We're hoping out of this we can strengthen the regulations in terms of these aspects of it.
Okay, and some of the countries, I remember seeing Jamaica, the Bahamas, there was Europe.
Yes, there was some African countries
Ghana,
as well. I think was one of them, yeah. And a few, yeah. So we tried to make sure we looked at a sort of large, you know, worldwide kind of gamut of countries, so that we ensure that we looked at all differential aspects of it. Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's important too. And I liked what you said, because when I was looking at it, and I was like, my goodness, we have these things in the Eastern Caribbean, and these other big countries, they're not, measuring these. So I found that very impressive.
Exactly.
So we're on the right path.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, we're going to take a break in a moment. So I'm going to delay the next question.
Okay.
So we'll be right back. Do stay with us.
I have my mobile, landline, cable TV, and internet service. If I have a problem with any of the services, what should I do?
Here's what you should do to resolve the problem. First, get and fill out a complaint form.
I have my mobile, landline, cable TV, and internet service. If I have a problem with any of the services, what should I do?
Here's what you should do to resolve the problem. First, get and fill out a complaint form and lodge your complaint with the service provider. If after 30 days there is still no solution, you may contact your National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, NTRC.
This message is brought to you as a public service announcement by ECTEL, the NTRC, and this station.
So welcome back to episode 17 of ECTEL Bytes. Our special guest is Lawrence Narvey, ECTEL's Technical Services Director. So we are deep in the conversation, and now we're going to progress a little more. So how will the function and capacity of the NTRCs be strengthened under the new Electronic Communications Bill or Act and revised quality of service regulations to monitor and enforce the QoS regulations?
Okay, very good question. The NTRCs will be better equipped to monitor QoS, because the reporting requirements that we have instilled in this regulations which are being consulted upon will allow for there more specifics in terms of the frequency of the reporting, what exactly has to be reported on, the parameters, the KPIs, that sort of thing. And in addition to that, the NTRCs will be provided tools that they will be able to do their own monitoring and compare this against the reports that are provided by the licensees. So they will not be totally reliant on the reports. They can actually do their own monitoring and see if there's any discrepancies between what the licensees present and what they have measured. And so that I think in itself will allow additional strengthening of the capability. In addition to that, there will be a requirement for greater data analysis, because you have lots of reports coming at you, lots of data, and so we intend to provide capacity building in terms of data analysis for the NTRCs, so that they can better crunch that data and provide information, come up with information that is usable and that they can use to monitor and regulate the environment.
Okay, so I know last time Alvin had mentioned that that's a big component of the project. CARDIT project is the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, a mouthful, right. But the training of the NTRCs is a part of that. Correct. Any idea when this, this component will commence?
I don't have the exact timeline off the top of my head, but in terms of timing, we're looking. The project is slated to be completed by January next year. So we do not have a lot of time. No. So we are moving on very quickly, and right now we are looking at the implementation plan for that project to ensure that we can get it completed within that space of time.
Okay, yeah. And I know I didn't mention this to you before, but I'm just curious, what are the NTRC's sentiments about this? Are they excited about this new approach? What are their thoughts on it? Generally,
the feedback from the NTRCs is good. We've had quite a bit of engaging sessions involving ourselves, the NTRCs, the consultant, and there's been quite a bit of positive feedback. Of course, there will always be some disagreements, but we try to work through these and get some sort of consensus. Okay, excellent. Yes.
So what enforcement measures and sanctions are in place to deal with licensees that fail to meet their QoS obligations? Okay. I think everybody wants to know that.
Well, as a regulator, one tends to look at first the soft touch method, and so what one does is mandate that the licensee puts in corrective measures to ensure the parameters are met, that there's compliance with the reporting mechanism. If that fails, however, there are sanctions that can be implemented. There are financial sanctions. There's a financial sanction of up to $50,000 in the first instance.
EC?
Yes, yes. If the licensee fails to correct even after that sanction, then there is the possibility of a further $5,000 for every day he continues in that regard. So,
wow.
There are quite, and this is part of the strengthening of the legislation to allow the regulator more tools to ensure that quality of service is in fact held up. And of course, in addition to that, there is the possibility of suspending the license, and even the nuclear option of actually revoking the license, which is not something anybody wants, but if that is what is necessary, then there is that option available as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds, rather interesting, and I'm glad that you said that the licensees have been submitting their comments, because this will affect them, of course.
Indeed.
So it's really important for them
indeed.
to take a look at this,
Exactly.
public consultation and participate.
Yes, indeed.
Yes?
Yes.
How will the QoS be measured to ensure that licensees are meeting their targets, and will the findings be shared with the public?
Okay, so that's a good question. The onus really for reporting parameters and KPIs on quality of service is on the licensee. The licensee is required by law to provide these reports, and the parameters to be measured are stipulated in the regulations and the reporting mechanism. However, the NTRC, like I said before, does and will have the ability to do their own monitoring and compare against the reports that are provided by the licensees. And if there are any discrepancies, they can mandate that the corrective action be taken. So really and truly, that is the methodology that we use. But of course, in addition to that, there is the other factor where the reports are actually going to be published. So it'll be made public. So the consumers now have this added tool of looking at the comparative quality of service of different licensees and deciding, well, do I want to go with this guy who's not performing so well, or that one? So I think that is certainly an extra measure which will help consumers make decisions when deciding on where to go. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I'm curious though, where would the findings be made public? So would it be on the respective NTRC's website?
Yes, indeed, on the websites of the NTRCs. Yes,
okay,
yes.
All right. So the deadline for round 2 of the QoS regulations public consultation is April 28th. Mm-hmm. Take a minute to encourage the public to participate in the consultation.
Okay, thank you, Coretta. The public needs to understand the opportunity that this allows them. Quality of service is very important. Oftentimes we hear people say that they're not satisfied with the quality of service that they receive. But here we have an opportunity for them to go online, go to the various websites of the NTRCs, and actually give us their input, so that we can craft a legislation, a regulation that reflects the true perspective of the consumer on the ground. It is important that regulations, when they are provided, actually provide that sort of all-encompassing view. And so we really encourage the public to go online. Everybody who has telecommunication services, who's interested in quality of service, needs to go on and provide their comments, provide their feedback, so that we can craft the legislation, knowing that we have taken on board all views. I thank you.
Okay, excellent. So we're about to wrap up, but before that, we have one final break, and then we will be right back to wrap up episode 17 of ECTEL Bytes.
With just one click, the internet connects people, businesses, and nations. Being connected can open a world of information and opportunities. You can get services and products of your choice much faster. From electronic financial transactions to connecting with family and friends. From being up to date with the latest news and information to learning new skills and acquiring academic qualifications. All from the convenience of your home or wherever you roam. Get connected today.
This message is brought to you as a public service announcement by ECTEL, the NTRC, and this station.
Welcome back to episode 17 of ECTEL Bytes, and we're getting ready to wrap up with our special guest, Lawrence Nervay, the Director of Technical Services at ECTEL. So I really hope what he said to you about the importance of participating, especially if you've ever had any concerns about the quality of service you receive, this is the opportunity for you to participate in the public consultation. So as we wrap up, what happens after April 28th?
Okay, so that's a good question. Once we've received all the comments and feedback on the initial comments, we then would collate that data and prepare what we call a determination paper. That determination paper then will be submitted to the Board of ECTEL for approval and thereafter to the Council of Ministers. So we're really awaiting the feedback from the public so that we can do the necessary analysis and collate the report, the determination paper, so that we can present to the board.
Okay, excellent. So again, we're calling on you to participate. You could visit the websites of the various NTRCs. It's also on ECTEL's website.
Yes, indeed.
If you hit the consultation tab. So thank you so much for being on the show. It was your very first time, and I can't wait to invite you again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. So that was our very special guest, Lawrence Nervay, the Director of Technical Services at ECTEL. So as I just mentioned, feel free to visit any of the NTRC's website to participate in the ongoing quality of service public consultation, and it's your opportunity to let your voices be heard. It just doesn't end by you sending the information to the NTRCs, but as Mr. Nervay just pointed out, a determination paper will be produced, passed on to the Board of Directors, and then to the ministers. So your opinions are going to the highest level. So we're really hoping that you take this opportunity to participate. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comment section below, and we'll be sure to reply. This recording of ECTEL Bytes will also be on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. If you search at ECTEL, you'll find us there. Also on Instagram and Twitter at ECTEL Authority. So be sure to like, engage with the post, and share it with a friend. Our deepest thanks to the GIS St. Lucia for facilitating this recording of ECTEL Bytes. And I'm hoping that the other GISs in the region will also share it, because it's not just for St. Lucia, it's going to affect all our member states. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you virtually for another episode of ECTEL Bytes. I'm your host, Coretta Crooks-Charles, ECTEL's Communications and Media Relations Manager. Until next time, take care.